Dear friends, welcome to this 50 API testing interview questions video. As we all know, demand of API testing is increasing by leaps and bounds. Most of the organizations have either adopted or are in process of implementing the APIs, which makes API testing even more important and critical. So we have come up with these 50 API testing questions, and surely you must get a good idea about what is asked in API testing interviews and which areas do you need to study further. So let's get started now. So question 1, what is an API? Friends, this is the most basic though critical question. This question, when asked, should be answered most accurately and precisely, because this elementary question would give an idea about your understanding about APIs, and it might make or break the overall impression. So an ideal answer would include, API stands for Application Programming Interface. In basic terms, APIs are a set of functions and procedures that allow for the creation of applications that access data and features of other applications, services, or operating systems. In an API testing interview, you could be asked to give some API examples. The popular ones are Google Maps API, Amazon API, Twitter API, and YouTube API. Question 2, can you further explain API? Answer, friends, when people speak of an API, it's referred to a publicly available web-based API that returns data. As you can see in the diagram, we can send an API a request detailing the information we need. Web-based APIs return data in response to a request made by a client. The main point here is that API is not the database or even the server, it is the code that governs the access point for the server. Question 3, what is an API testing? Answer, friends, now it's our main question on testing. API testing is a type of software testing that involves testing APIs directly. API is a part of integration testing to check whether the API meets expectations in terms of functionality, reliability, performance, and security of applications. Question 4, what are the layers in API testing? Answer, applications often have 3 layers. Data layer, service layer, which is also called API layer, presentation or UI layer. Since APIs lack a GUI, API testing is performed at the service layer. Question 5, what is an API endpoint? Answer, for APIs, an endpoint can include a URL of a server or service. Each endpoint is the location from which APIs can access the resources they need to carry out their function. Simply put, an endpoint is one end of a communication channel. When an API interacts with another system, the touch points of this communication are considered endpoints. APIs work using requests and responses. When an API requests information from a web application or web server, it will receive a response. The place that APIs send requests and where the resource lives is called an endpoint. Question 6, what are the types of APIs? Answer, APIs often include the 3 types. System APIs access and maintain data. These types of APIs are responsible for managing all of the configurations within a system. To use an example, a system API unlocks data from a company's billing database. Then process APIs take the data accessed with system APIs and synthesize it to create a new way to view or act on data across systems. To continue the example, a process API would take the billing information and combine it with inventory information and other data to fulfill an order. Thirdly, experience APIs add context to system and process APIs. These types of APIs make the information collected by system and process APIs understandable to a specified audience. Following the same example, an experience API could translate the data from the process and system APIs into an order status tracker that displays information about when the order was placed and when the customer should expect to receive it. Question 7, what are some real-world examples of APIs? Answer. Few API examples are Google Maps, Twitter and YouTube APIs, however there can be many more. Google Maps APIs lets developers embed geolocation information on web pages using a JavaScript interface. The Google Maps API is designed to work on mobile devices and desktop browser. Twitter APIs. Twitter offers two APIs, one for general Twitter content and another for Twitter advertising. The former enables programmatic access to tweets, direct messages, Twitter users, and other features. The latter connects developers to Twitter's ads platform to build programs around managing a campaign's creative content, target audience, and overall performance analytics. YouTube API. Google's APIs lets developers integrate YouTube videos and functionality into websites or applications. YouTube APIs include the YouTube Analytics API, YouTube Data API, YouTube Live Streaming API, YouTube Player APIs and others. We also have Amazon Product Advertising API. Amazon's Product Advertising API gives developers access to Amazon's product selection and discovery functionality to advertise Amazon products to monetize a website. Question 8. How many types of API testing are there? Answer. Let's discuss the 8 common testing types here. First, unit testing is for testing the usefulness of individual activity. Then, UI testing is for testing the usefulness of UI as a component of start to finish. Thirdly, functional testing is simply a test of specific functions within the code base. Load testing, for testing the functionality and execution under load conditions. Load testing takes on a few different scenarios in order to ensure peak performance. The first of these scenarios is called the baseline, and tests the API against the theoretical regular traffic the API expects in normal, day-to-day usage. Fifth is the usability testing. It is easy to hit the APIs on different platforms and test the usability of a software. Sixth is error detection, for recognizing any blunders, for example, special cases and asset spills. This type of test is focused on the actual running of the API. Error detection is concerned with the universal results of utilizing the API code base. Then security testing. Security testing also includes penetration testing and fuzz testing. Lastly, discovery testing helps in identifying APIs where the resources are not exposed. Question 9. What is a typical API testing process? Answer. Friends, this question is an important one as this would exhibit your overall API process knowledge. As we can see in the process flow, step 1 is to create API testing requirements. To be able to plan API tests, we need to answer following questions. Determine testing boundaries and requirements. Purpose of the API. Workflow of the application. Features and functions of the API and definition of pass and fail. Then step 2 is to establish the API test environment. After the functional scope, the next step is setting up an API test environment. Step 3 is to define the input parameters. Plan all possible input combinations to verify the results to determine whether the API performs as expected. Step 4. Create API test cases. After all the preparations are done, it's the time to write and execute test cases followed by compare actual results with the expected ones. Examples of API test cases may include positive and negative test values to check the response is passed or failed. When there is no return value in response. Verification of response after data structure updates. Validating resources modified by the API call. Then step 5, test case execution and comparison of the results with expected results. Question 10. What are the types of bugs we face when performing API testing? Answer. Issues observed when performing API testing are stress, performance, and security issues. Duplicate or missing functionality. Reliability issues. Improper messaging. Incompatible error handling mechanism. Multi-threaded issues. Improper errors. Question 11. What is SOAP? Answer. SOAP is also known as Simple Object Access Protocol, is an XML-based messaging protocol. It aids in the exchanging of information between computers. SOAP API can be used to create, retrieve, update, or delete records, like accounts, leads, and user-defined objects. Question 12. What is REST? Answer. REST stands for Representational State Transfer. These are web services that provide interoperability between computer systems over the Internet. RESTful web services provide a predefined set of stateless operations and allow requesting systems to access and manipulate textual representations of web resources. Question 13. What is the difference between SOAP and REST? Answer. This is a very common interview question, friends. You can look at the table of differences between SOAP and REST. The main differences between SOAP and REST are: SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol, whereas REST stands for Representational State Transfer. SOAP is a protocol, whereas REST is an architectural style. Web services following SOAP principles are called SOAP web services, whereas web services following REST architectural style are called RESTful web services. SOAP message request is processed slower as compared to REST. SOAP supports only XML data format, whereas REST supports data formats like plain text, XML, HTML, JSON. Question 14. What are differences between API and web service? Answer. This is also a very common and important interview question which we should know. The main differences between API and web services are: all web services are APIs, whereas all APIs are not web services. Web services can only be hosted on EAS, whereas APIs can be hosted within an application or EAS. Web services are not open source but APIs are open source, whereas web services require a SOAP protocol to receive and send data over the network, so a lightweight architecture, whereas APIs are lightweight architecture. A web service uses only three styles of use: SOAP, REST and XML/RPC for communication. API may use any style of communication. Web services only supports the HTTP protocol, whereas API supports the HTTP protocol, URL, request, response headers, caching, versioning, content formats. Question 15. What is XML? Answer. XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. It's a markup language much like HTML. XML was designed to store and transport data. XML was designed to be self-descriptive. It has sender information. It has receiver information. It has a heading. It has a message body. Question 16. What is WSDL? Answer. WSDL stands for Web Services Description Language. WSDLs are an XML format that tells you how to access a web service. WSDL is used to describe web services. WSDL is written in XML. Question 17. What is SOA? Answer. Service-oriented architecture, SOA, is a style of software design where services are provided to the other components by application components through a communication protocol over a network. SOA is a way in which companies can organize software that can be quickly changed to respond to the requirements of the marketplace. Question 18. What is JSON? Answer. JSON is definitely becoming more popular and is now replacing XML in certain situations for API data exchanging. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation and was designed to be a lightweight data interchange format. The site www.json.org describes how JSON is built on two structures. 1. A collection of name-value pairs. In various languages, this is realized as an object, record, struct, dictionary, hash table, keyed list, or associative array. 2. An ordered list of values. In most languages, this is realized as an array, vector, list, or sequence. Question 19. What is SOAP message elements? Answer. 1. SOAP envelope. The SOAP envelope is always the top element in the message. 2. Header. The header is optional and is the first child element to appear after the envelope. Headers can contain different types of application-specific information like security authentication or session management info. 3. Body. Sometimes referred to as the payload, the body contains the actual message that shows the information for the recipient of the message. Question 20. What are the commonly used HTTP methods? Answer. 1. The HTTP GET method is used to retrieve data. It is a read-only call and data cannot be modified. If it is a successful request, without any errors, then a status of code of 200 OK is received along with the data requested in the particular format, which is generally JSON or XML. Get method is considered a safe method to call as no corruption or modification of data will be done. 2. The HTTP post method is a write method. It is mainly used to create a new resource by providing the input in JSON or XML format. When a post request is made, a new resource is created with the values provided along with it. If it is an error-free call, the status returned will be 201. These methods are not idempotent and thus can result in errors or duplicate records if called more than one time. 3. The HTTP put method is like an update command. It is used to change the value of any resource whose original value was something else. Put methods can also be used to create resources, but only if the request is from the client and not the server. If we call the same put request again, then no changes are made, means it is idempotent. 4. The HTTP delete method, as the name suggests, is used to delete a resource. If the request is made successfully, then the status code returned is 200 OK. These are also idempotent, as if a resource is deleted once, it cannot affect it. Question 21. What are the commonly used HTTP response codes? Answer. There are quite a few standard HTTP response codes. They include informational codes, success codes, redirect codes, client error codes, and server error codes. Some of the most common HTTP response codes used with REST are as follows: 200 OK, 201 created, 400 bad request, 401 unauthorized, 405 method not allowed, 409 conflict, and 500 internal server error. Question 22. What is URI? What is the purpose of web-based service and what is its format? Answer. URI stands for Uniform Resource Identifier. It is a string of characters designed for unambiguous identification of resources and extensibility by the URI scheme. The purpose of URI is to locate the resource on the server hosting of the web service. Question 23. What's the difference between a URI and a URL? A URI is an identifier of a specific resource, like a page, or book, or a document, whereas a URL is special type of identifier that also tells you how to access it, such as HTTPs, FTP, like google.com. Question 24. What is an API documentation? Answer. API documentation refers to complete and accurate technical instructions on how to effectively use and integrate with an API. It includes all the information needed to work with the API and helps project members to understand all the API testing questions, including details on functions, classes, return types, arguments, and also examples. Question 25. What are commonly used API documentation templates? Answer. There can be many, but some of the popular API documentation templates are Swagger, REST-Doc, Myadot, API Blueprint, Slate, Web Service API Specification, Flat Doc. Question 26. What is a resource in REST? Answer. The fundamental concept in any RESTful API is the resource. A resource is an object with a type, associated data, relationships to other resources, and a set of methods that operate on it. REST architecture treats every content as a resource. These resources can be text files, HTML pages, images or videos. Here each resource is identified by URIs, global IDs. Resources can be grouped into collections. Each collection is homogeneous so that it contains only one type of resource. Collections can exist globally, at the top level of an API, but can also be contained inside a single resource. In the latter case, we refer to these collections as subcollections. Question 27. What is payload in RESTful web services? Answer. The payload of an API module is the body of your request and response message. It contains the data that you send to the server when you make an API request. You can send and receive payload in different formats, for instance JSON. Simply put, the term payload differentiates between the essential information in a chunk of data and the information that is used to support it. The term originated from the transportation sector, where it refers to the load that a person pays for when they transport something. Question 28. What is the caching mechanism? Answer. Caching is the ability to store copies of frequently accessed data in several places along the request-response path. When a consumer requests a resource, the request goes through a cache or a series of caches toward the service hosting the resource. If any of the caches along the request path has a fresh copy of the requested resource, it uses that copy to satisfy the request. If none of the caches can satisfy the request travels to the service. Caching improves the overall quality of service in the following ways: reduce bandwidth, reduce latency, reduce load on servers, hide network failures. Question 29. What are the common defects API testing finds? Answer. Some of the common defects can be missing or duplicate functionality, fails to handle error conditions gracefully, stress testing issue, reliability issues, security issues, not implemented errors, inconsistent error handling, performance, multi-threading issues, improper errors. Question 30. What are the core components of an HTTP request? Answer. Each HTTP request includes 5 key elements. 1. The verb which indicates HTTP methods such as get, put, post, delete. 2. URI stands for Uniform Resource Identifier, URI. It is the identifier for the resource on the server. 3. HTTP version which indicates HTTP version, for example HTTP v1.1. 4. Request header carries metadata as key value pairs for the HTTP request message. Metadata could be a client or browser type, the format that the client supports, message body format, and cache settings. 5. Request body indicates the message content or resource representation. Question 31. What are the core components of an HTTP response? Answer. Every HTTP response includes 4 key elements. 1. Status response code indicates server status for the resource present in the HTTP request. For example, 404 means resource not found, and 200 means response is OK. 2. HTTP version indicates HTTP version, for example HTTP v1.1. 3. Response header contains metadata for the HTTP response message stored in the form of key value pairs, for example, content length, content type, response date, and server type. 4. Response body indicates response message content or resource representation. Question 32. What are the main principles of API test design? Answer. Let's look at these 5 principles. Setup. This includes the creation of objects, start services and initialize data, etc. Execution. During this principle, there are steps to follow API or scenario as well as logging. Verification. For evaluating the execution outcome there are oracles. Reporting. Keep a tab on the pass, blocked or failed. Cleanup. This shows pre-test state. Question 33. How does the API Builder work? Answer. API Builder lets you build and deploy a project that is comprised of API endpoints that can be consumed by any client application. An API Builder project is a Node.js application that runs in the Amplify runtime services and is comprised of several components. You can either define the components using JavaScript files placed in specific directories, which are automatically loaded when creating an API Builder instance, or programmatically create components after initializing an API Builder instance. For information about the components, see the diagram and sections below. Question 34. Explain what's Test API? Answer. Test API is a library of software and checks APIs that allows testers and developers to create checking out gear and automatic assessments for Internet and Win32 utility. It gives a set of not unusual test building blocks, sorts, data shape, and algorithms. Question 35. How does microservice architecture work? Answer. Microservices, also known as the microservice architecture, is an architectural style that structures an application as a collection of services that are highly maintainable and testable, loosely coupled, independently deployable, organized around business capabilities, owned by a small team. The microservice architecture enables the rapid, frequent and reliable delivery of large, complex applications. It also enables an organization to evolve its technology stack. In the diagram shown, there are some important elements we should know. Clients, different users from various devices send requests. Identity providers, authenticates user or client's identities and issues security tokens. API gateway, handles client requests. Static content, houses all the content of the system. Management, balances services on nodes and identifies failures. Service discovery, a guide to find the route of communication between microservices. Content delivery networks, distributed network of proxy servers and their data centers. Remote service, enables the remote access information that resides on a network of IT devices. Question 36. What is statelessness in RESTful web services? Answer. As per REST architecture, a RESTful web service should not keep a client state on server. This restriction is called statelessness. It is responsibility of the client to pass its context to server, and then server can store this context to process client's further request. For example, session maintained by server is identified by session identifier passed by the client. Question 37. What is the use of accept and content type headers in HTTP request? Answer. Accept headers tells web service what kind of response client is accepting. So if a web service is capable of sending response in XML and JSON format and client sends accept header as application XML, then XML response will be sent. Content type header is used to tell server what is the format of data being sent in the request. If content type header is application XML, then server will try to pass it as XML data. This header is useful in HTTP post and put requests. Question 38. What is API framework? Answer. The API framework is described by the config file, which consists of a list of all the APIs required to be activated and activated for any particular program run. API framework is mandatory as every test run does not require all APIs. The API frameworks are the code libraries that provide standard functionality when creating your APIs. This framework is a platform that is used for developing software applications. It is a type of foundation on which the developer can build a software application. Question 39. What are differences between API testing and UI testing? Answer. API enables communication between two separate software systems. A software system implementing an API contains functions or subroutines that can be executed by another software system. On the other hand, UI, user interface testing, refers to testing graphical interface such as how users interact with the applications, testing application elements like fonts, images, layouts etc. UI testing basically focuses on look and feel of an application. Question 40. What are some architectural styles for creating a web API? Answer. This is one of the fundamental web API interview questions. Below are 4 common web API architectural styles. HTTP for client-server communication. XML, JSON as formatting language. Simple URI as the address for the services. Stateless communication. Question 41. What must be checked when performing API testing? Answer. During the API testing process, a request is raised to the API with the known data. This way you can analyze the validation response. While testing an API, you should consider accuracy of data, schema validation, HTTP status codes, data type, validations, order and completeness, authorization checks, implementation of response timeout, error codes in case API returns, and Non-functional testing like performance and security testing. Question 42. What is an API specification? Answer. An API specification is a specially formatted document that provides clear definitions of an API's methods and features, as well as their possible configurations. Question 43. What is patch? Answer. Unlike put, patch applies a partial update to the resource. This means that you are only required to send the data that you want to update, and it won't affect or change anything else. So if you want to update the first name on a database, you will only be required to send the first parameter, the first name. Question 44. What's the difference between put vs patch? Answer. The main difference between put and patch requests is witnessed in the way the server processes the entity to update the resource. When making a put request, the entity is viewed as the modified version of the resource saved on the original server, and the client is requesting to replace it. However, with patch, the enclosed entity boasts a set of instructions that describe how a resource stored on the original server should be partially modified to create a new version. The second difference is when it comes to idempotency. HTTP. Put is said to be idempotent since it always yields the same results after making several requests. On the other hand, HTTP patch is basically said to be non-idempotent. However, it can be made to be idempotent based on where it is implemented. Question 45. What is keep alive and its benefits? Answer. The default HTTP connection is usually closed after each request has been completed, meaning that the server closes the TCP connection after delivering the response. In order to keep the connection open for multiple requests, the keep alive connection header can be used. Benefits of keep alive. Reduced CPU usage. Creating new TCP connections can take a lot of resources such as CPU and memory usage. Keeping connections alive longer can reduce this usage. Web page speed. The ability to serve multiple files using the same connection can reduce latency and allow web pages to load faster. HTTPS. HTTPS connections, content over secure socket layer, are very resource intensive. So it is highly recommended to enable keep alive for HTTPS connections and maybe spice it a bit with HTTP, too. Question 46. What is Swagger? Answer. Swagger is a library used to document a REST API. The documentation itself can also be used to generate a client for the API for different platforms, automatically. Question 47. Explain the difference between stateless and stateful protocols. Which type of protocol is HTTP? Answer. A stateless communications protocol treats each request as an independent transaction. It therefore does not require the server to retain any session, identity, or status information spanning multiple requests from the same source. Similarly, the requester cannot rely on any such information being retained by the responder. In contrast, a stateful communications protocol is one in which the responder maintains state information, session data, identity, status, etc. across multiple requests from the same source. HTTP is a stateless protocol. HTTP does not require server to retain information or status about each user for the duration of multiple requests. Question 48. What are the factors that help to decide which style of web services SOAP or REST to use? Answer. Generally, REST is preferred due to its simplicity, performance, scalability, and support for multiple data formats. However, SOAP is favorable to use where service requires an advanced level of security and transactional reliability. But there are some facts before opting for any of the styles. First, does the service expose data or business logic? REST is commonly used for exposing data while SOAP for logic. Second, the requirement from clients or providers for a formal contract. SOAP can provide contract via WSDL. Third, support multiple data formats. Fourth, support for AJAX calls. REST can apply the XML HTTP request. Fifth, synchronous and asynchronous calls. SOAP enables both synchronous, asynchronous operations whereas REST has built-in support for synchronous. Sixth, stateless or stateful calls. REST is suited for stateless operations. 7th, security. SOAP provides a high level of security. 8. Transaction support. SOAP is good at transaction management. 9th, limited bandwidth. SOAP has a lot of overhead when sending, receiving packets since it's XML-based, requires a SOAP header. However, REST requires less bandwidth to send requests to the server. Its messages are mostly built using JSON. 10th, ease of use. REST-based application is easy to implement, test, and maintain. Question 49. What is a RESTful web services? Answer. Web services developed in the REST style are referred to as RESTful web services. These web services use HTTP methods to implement the concept of REST architecture. A RESTful web service usually defines a URI, Uniform Resource Identifier. A service provides resource representation like JSON and a set of HTTP methods. Question 50. What are some of the API testing tools? Answer. There are plenty of API testing tools in the market. SOAP UI, Postman, JMeter are some of the most popular API testing tools. On the portal softwaretestingportal.com, we have explored 20 API testing tools, which may be lesser known but have more or less same features and give a solid performance, therefore worth giving a shot. Bonus question: what are the benefits of API testing? Answer. Early testing. With API testing, once the logic is designed, tests can be built to validate the correctness in responses and data. We don't have to wait for various teams to finish their work or for full applications to be built. Test cases are isolated and ready to build immediately. Easier test maintenance. UIs are constantly changing and moving around based on how they are accessed, browser, devices, screen orientation, etc. This creates a nightmare scenario where tests are being constantly rewritten to keep up with the actual code in production. API changes are much more controlled and infrequent. Oftentimes API definitions files like OpenAPI spec can help make refactoring tests only a seconds of work. Faster time to resolution. When API tests fail, we know exactly where our system broke and where the defect can be found. This helps reduce time triaging bugs between builds, integrations, and even different team members. The small, isolated footprint of an API test is perfect for faster MTTR stats, a valuable KPI for DevOps teams. Speed and coverage of testing. 100 UI tests may take 10 hours to run, whereas 100 API tests could be run in 1 hour too. That means we can find and fix more bugs in less time. So friends, this list can go on and on, however we have to stop somewhere. Friends, hope these 50 API testing interview questions would help you in your interview preparation as well as in your API testing knowledge. Again, please like, share, subscribe and comment, so that we remain motivated to come up with such knowledge sharing videos. Thanks for watching all our videos. See you in the next one.